Welcome everyone to the Performance Meeting in September 2025, our final meeting for Australian. And welcome to anyone watching via live stream. And we'll open this morning and I'll ask for everyone to stand for a read the council pillar. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. I have received apologies from His Worship the Mayor Andy Watson and Councillor Sharland. I'm happy to move that. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wong. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Not been notified of any public forum. Item number 4 is conflict of interest declarations. If anyone has any conflicts they'd like to declare now. If not, the normal procedure is if we're discussing matters and a conflict arises, please raise it at that time. There's no change to the confirmation of order of business. And moving to confirmation of previous minutes. So if we run through those. Anything to bring to our attention, page 6, page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Through you, Madam Chair, you raised a query with me around item 9.7 on page 10, around one of the sentences that didn't quite make sense.
Yes.
So officers are happy to amend that sentence to increase clarity of the wording.
Thank you. Any other amendments? So I'm happy to move that the minutes of the Finance Performance Committee meeting held on the 28th of August 2025 as amended be taken as read and verified as an accurate and correct record of the meeting. And that the electronic signature of the chair of this committee be added to the official minutes document as a formal record. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Carter. All those in favour? Against, carried. Item number 7 is my chair's report. My apologies, it is again in the verbal, but I will appreciate that our technology can now pick it up for me. I'd like to open by welcoming the appointment yesterday of the first woman governor of the Reserve Bank in its 91-year history. Welcome, Dr. Anna Breman. Our economy is facing significant challenges. While inflation has lowered, geopolitical and trade tensions seem to be impacting. GDP dropped 0.9% in the June quarter. This has meant a very tough quarter for our businesses locally. However, our primary industries are having a record year and many households will be refixing their mortgages in the next 6 months, which should stimulate increased household spending. This meeting, we consider the draft annual report. Thank you to staff for all their time and effort to support this committee, our council, and our district over the past 3 years. Thank you to the elected members for your valuable input over the past 3 years. And to Councillor Carter and Councillor Morn, who are retiring, thank you for your skills and service.
Well, I'm not on the committee.
Greg was worried
But you can thank me for the support over the years.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert, for your attendance today, and I also accept your retirement. So thank you for your service to this committee, and to those standing again in the upcoming election. I wish you all very well in the forthcoming campaign. I think Henry Ford summed it up. He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. That's my report. Any questions or discussion? Thank you. I'm happy to move that this Chair's report, September 2025, be received. Seconder, please.
Can I seconding it, can I thank you for your great chairmanship of this committee. It's one of the fastest meetings we have, and it's bloody awesome.
Thanks, Greg. And thank you for seconding that motion.
Have a good day.
Well, faster horse. Moving to,
Just need to vote.
oh, beg your pardon. All those in favour? Against, carried. Moving to item 8, reports for decision, page 13 of our order paper, and the draft 2024-25 annual report. Welcome, Leanne.
Marina, good morning, everyone. Before I hand this report over to Warren, I just want to introduce, sitting over here, Marita Wilkinson. So I just want to acknowledge Marita has been with our team quite some time, and she is one of our accountants, fully fledged accountant earlier this year, which we were really proud to celebrate. Marita's put a lot into this annual report, supporting Warren and the team creating it. And you'll see more of Marita in the new triennium as she starts taking us through some of the finances. The draft annual report, it is, I think, a new process, bringing it to finance and performance as a draft annual report. The reason I wanted to do that for this end of triennium is because you as the committee have, and the council here have been part of the annual plan that we've followed all year. You've followed our progress all year in the way the team have carried out the work and the spends against budgets and revised budget. And so we thought it was appropriate to bring the draft to you as the committee to be able to recommend to the new council when this annual report is adopted that you're comfortable with it. There will be a few changes. We know this as the auditors go through and find bits and pieces. And we've also found a few changes already. For example, we know now on page 109, we haven't quite got the track members correct, and we'll adjust that. Page 44, we're missing a couple of the highlights, including our Taihape Town Hall and Grandstand. And so we'll make sure these are added in as we work through our final, and we will be tracking all of these changes so that when we bring the final report back with the audit opinion on the 30th of October, any changes will be easy to see and understand. At this stage, we don't foresee any major financial changes. They have so far tracked well. We have the auditors officially auditing at the moment, but they've been very quiet. So we're taking that as good news and trying not to feel concerned. With that, I'm going to hand over to Warren to take you through the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. Good morning, councillors. Right, my pleasure to introduce the draft annual accounts for 2025. I will take it as read, but just point out a couple of things to you before I hand over to questions. So as Leanne said, we're still waiting on audit feedback from this, so potentially things will shift. But like we said, we're not expecting any material changes. So to highlight just a couple of key things, firstly, as per the report, section 3 of the report, We've incurred an operating deficit of 9.3 million compared to a budget of 1.5 million. That sounds not very flash, but I would caution you not to get too carried away on that, because a lot of that is around the subsidies that were put into the plan around NZTA, and the fact that NZTA wound back their capital program and how much they were prepared to fund to us. So hence we were always going to get less subsidy revenue than we'd planned from NZTA. And secondly, with the cancellation of the Rail Hub project, there was money built into that and around grants from Kanoa that we obviously weren't going to receive this year. So if you back those things out and you take into account that we've changed the accounting treatment in respect to the Martin Rail Hub, our result is actually quite strong. And to that end, I would point out that it's very easy to get carried away with paper profits, but as we know, as a council, our job is to manage cash flow. That's king, as it is in all businesses. So with that, I draw your attention to page 60 of the draft report and the funding impact statement, and you'll see that our operating surplus is actually in excess of budget by $1.1 million. We planned 5.8 million. We've actually come in at just over 7 million. So that would indicate that we've operated the council in a very healthy state this year. And the other thing that I would point out too is on page 63. If you look at the statement of cash flows, we'd had planned to have $11 million in the bank at the end of the year. We've actually got $11.8 million in the bank. And I would also point out that we obviously, from a borrowing perspective, we did not spend all the money we were going to spend on the capital program last year. That impacts our borrowing, but nonetheless to have actually got a better result from a cash flow perspective than what we planned to, and not done anything like the level of borrowing that we planned to, is another good result. And with that, highlighting those few things, I'll pass it over to the floor and invite any questions.
Any questions on the floor? Councillor Moore.
How much of NZTA and Martin Rail Hub, is 4.85 million impact on both of those. How much is attributed to each of them? Like, how much did the NZTA funding subsidies impact us?
Yep. Sorry, Leanne.
Probably the easiest place to go and see a really good understanding of the impact and how we fund is going to page 60 of the annual report, and you see the funding impact statement, and there you'll see that our subsidies and grants dropped by nearly 5 million. That was a big part of that was our NZTA funding. Our planned money for the Rail Hub this year was 2 point.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm thinking 2.3 million.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 2.3.
I'll confirm the number, but I think the mix is 2.3 for the Rail Hub and the balance is NZTA.
Supplementary, I thought council's commitment to the Rail Hub was only going to be 700 something thousand.
If I can just speak on that, the original plan for the Martin Rail Hub, we council were actually only going to spend, we had committed 327k of RDC funding, and we had expected to bring in around 3.1 million in total of Kanoa funding on the first. I think totally it was going to be a $9.5 million project. What then happened is, and if you recall, there was a workshop back on the 12th of December when we knew things were changing. We ended up receiving, of the 3.1 million of Kanoa, we received about 1.9 mil. And so we had a shortfall of 1.3 mil. And then we still had our 300 and something commitment. So 1.6 ended up being incurred across council over the last few years. When we talk about the loss, we had expensed the bulk of this funding in 22-23 and 23-24. But it's been sitting in our work in progress. I think we spent about 180k in the year just gone. So again, it's a bit like what Warren's saying, don't get hung up about the loss. It is us moving capital spend into operational spend, which is an accounting thing we have to do. We'd spent the money some time back. But it has a cost. It has cost council 1.6 million in total.
Again, but those previous funding should have been accounted for in the previous
The
year's
cost-
account, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and
Through
they
the
have
chair,
been.
the cash, the spending was, and it was sitting. So in 22-23, Audit New Zealand got us to expense, put into the operating account approximately 1.3 million, reflecting what they believe was operational. What we've now put in expensed as a loss has been sitting in the balance sheet. It had already been spent, but it sits in the balance sheet waiting to be capitalised. Because the project's not going ahead, there's nothing to capitalise. That then had to be expensed through our profit and loss. So like Warren said, it's not getting hung up about the what's coming through the P&L. It's, if you look at our cash flow, it hasn't impacted. It had already been spent. We'd already paid the bills.
Yeah, so through the chair, to your point, the cash spend actually occurred in the prior years, so that's all been accounted for in the prior years. And it's just, as Leanne said, sits in the balance sheet as work in progress, expecting that the date that we finished that project, we would capitalise that as an asset. The fact that the project's been written off means we can't do that, so we've got to expense it back. Yep.
Councillor Wong.
There's 1.3 million, even though Mr. Pedley has explained it very well, it'll still be of great concern to a number of people. So $1.6 million of that is going to be capitalised through the Martin Rail, no?
There is, through the chair, there is nothing to capitalise because there is no project to capitalise. The project has been cancelled.
Right.
So this is expensed. It is hitting our profit and loss and it will come out of our equity.
So can I ask, the $9.3 million deficit will be carried into the accounts for next year? In
There
what
is,
form?
through the chair, there is no 9.3. The project stopped. We never
Oh,
received.
no,
the
sorry, the overall $9.3 million deficit.
Oh,
Operating-
sorry, yes.
Operating deficit,
Paper deficit, yes.
yes. So how will that be carried through to the next year's accounts?
It's a paper deficit. A lot of what was a lot of the revenue we had reflected in our profit and loss account
Mhm.
was for capital expenditure that did not happen. So NZTA, for instance. So NZTA is one of those really unusual ones in that they fund both operational and capital
Right,
funds.
yes,
Typically, we don't reflect income that is for capital,
right,
but NZTA we do. So when we don't get the 4 million, give or take, that we didn't receive,
mhm,
that's reflected as a loss in the profit and loss, but actually the expense would have happened in the capital and that did not happen. So when you look at the funding impact statement,
mhm.
it has a different figure again because we were expecting capital income
Yes.
and expense. We haven't got the expense as well
Right.
because we change our spend accordingly to the funding we receive.
That accounts for another big chunk of it. There's still going to be a significant amount that's still operating deficit that's not accounted for by the NZTA subsidies. So how will that be accounted for?
So the 2.2, which is a big chunk of it, is is writing off the Martin hub.
Right,
That will sit in equity again with it's a non-cash write-off. We've already expensed that project, but it will go against the council collective equity as reducing
Funds.
the funds.
so we should have no effect on next year's rates. We'll not have a,
No,
Correct.
correct.
that's interesting, thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
Can I just clarify regarding where the money sat in the Martin Rail Hub capital or operating expenses? Council put forward that it would only spend $220,000 in district plan costs, which is an operating expense. The balance of their $750 was for capital projects to buy land and link the roading to the rail siding. The district plan change consumed the rest of the capital that we are talking. Kanoa, the contract with council with the district plan, with the Martin Rail Hub was a capital project from their perspective. Kanoa contributed, I think, $1.7 million extra to council to cover the district plan operating expenses. So there seems to be a mixed message coming through as to the expense of Martin Rauha district plan operating expenses. What's the total operating expense in the district plan change that council did?
Through the chair, and I'm going to look at Warren for a little bit of this because I've come in late into this picture, but in 22-23, 1.3 million from audit was moved into operating expenditure, 1.1, sorry, 1.1 million was moved into operating, so that was operating costs.
Yep.
For this year, 22, 23, 24, and this last little piece, the rest has been capital as far as I'm aware. There has been no other operating costs.
So, but it's not accounted for as capital spend, and that's the confusion, I think, is it's actually sitting in the balance sheet as well. So it doesn't identify as capital or operating expenses. It actually sits in the balance sheet. So if you think about it, it's got a decrease in cash and assets, and we've got an increase in this value called WIP in the. So it's not actually sitting in capital spend. It's gazetted as capital spend. It's accounted for through the year as capital spend, and the end of year accounts have it sitting work in progress. And that's what we've simply written out this year, is because we can't go to the auditors in good faith and say we've got an asset hanging off the end of this expenditure, so we'll get expense back into the P&L.
So based on the auditor's opinion last time round, when they wanted you to shift 1.1 from capital into operating expense, will the auditors have the same opinion that that money needs to be shifted into operating expenses?
That's exactly what we've done, and you'll see that in the accounts. That's exactly what we've done. You'll see the losses is us moving it from work in progress into operating. So we've done that. And that's reflected in the bottom line.
Through the chair, for that to have remained in WIP, we had to be confident that there was a future economic benefit that would arise to council as a result of that expenditure. And of course, with the cancellation of the project, we can't be confident about that. So under the accounting standards, we have to take it back to the P&L and write it off.
Thank you.
Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, on the same vein, the money we got from Kanoa, 1.7.
1.8,
Yep.
1.9.
Yeah.
Does that, where has that gone into the project? So the total loss of the what you're saying is the
1 point through the chair. So yes, we've received 1.88, nearly 1.9 million.
Yeah.
And that is reflected in other years in our P&L and flowed through as a profit, so to speak, because the capital is sitting in the balance sheet. In total, we have lost 1.6 million. So we've spent 3.4, nearly 3.5 million, and we've received just under 1.9 million from Kanoa.
It seems for a project that we're only supposed to put, say, $750,000 into, it's a bit of a. I'm not going to say the words I'm thinking, but it's, hasn't been a success, obviously.
Comment on that.
Councillor
A clarification, so is that 1.6 million in your terms plus the 750 that council committed to the project initially?
No, through the chair, that is total. So we had committed in the piece that we were working on, 327,000 of the 750. So in total, we've lost 1.6, including the 327, so 1.3 outside of the year-to-date project plan.
Maybe through the chair, I will just remind you of a workshop that you had on this on the 12th of December last year, which worked you through all of the figures in terms of the Kanoa Council, all of these figures. So that presentation is still available on the Elected Member Hub for you to refer back to.
Nothing's changed from what.
Nothing's changed from here.
Nothing's changed.
The Bendigo community, would it be possible to send that out again or just?
on the hub.
So that, just remind me the date of that so they can find it easily, please.
So the council workshop from the 12th of December 2024.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, could I just point out a quick couple of things? council did make an active decision in the last training to increase the amount of money going into this project to facilitate a plan change. Council was successful ultimately in that plan change, and we do have an active plan change that has been enacted. So whilst the reason for the plan change was the development of an industrial hub on the outskirts of Martin is no longer active, the decision that council made in its project to do the land change is active. So to say that the project, and it's a loss of money, is actually somewhat misleading. We have the land available for a future development as it may come along, and it may well be picked up by somebody in the future. So to say that it's a total loss, I think is somewhat misleading in that commentary.
Thank you, councillor Wilson. Councillor Loudon.
Can I just comment on that, please? The district plan change on Makirikiri Road is dependent on a rail siding to be developed, and so the rail siding needs to be in place for that land to be developed. And it was council's intention to put the rail siding in with their rail hub money from the provincial growth fund, and that's been withdrawn. So it will be a difficult piece of land to develop without a rail siding.
Sound industrial.
Sorry, Chair, if I may.
Yes.
That's not to say that somebody may not come along and put a rail siding in it. That's the point that I make. It is an active project, whilst the original parties interested in the project are no longer seeing fit to continue with it. The project may well be picked up, as I said before, by somebody in the future, which will be, I believe, as I always have done, great benefit to the Rangitikei district and to the ratepayers of Martin going forward. I'm just saying it's not a total loss. It has come at a cost, but it is there, sitting, waiting, ready, and hopefully will be picked up at some stage soon when circumstances make themselves available to do so.
Thank you. Okay, so in around the annual report, just the other thing I was interested in is the personnel changes, budget versus actual. Just does anyone want to speak to those?
If I can refer the chair again, you will recall that when we set the long-term plan, our infrastructure and roading team were all based at NDC, and they were under our contractors. That was where the cost sat, and we've brought them in-house. And so you'll see that for the majority, there's been a reduced contractors' cost to offset the majority of the personnel costs. And that's something we've talked about all through the year.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Or to the rail hub. The long-term plan has us in deficit for the first 6 years, and then moving into a positive balance sheet. The result for this year, is that going to impact upon the long-term plan forecasting?
Through the chair, no, that is not going to impact, and it's not going to change. And most of the deficit that you see in the what we call the unbalanced budget is around how we choose to fund depreciation. It's not making losses, it's the fact that we have to show in our set of accounts the full impact of depreciating an asset, but we do not have to fund 100% at the depreciation asset. And so, like many councils around New Zealand, we have elected to go, what do we have to fund in depreciation? Our three waters and roading is a given, we must, but a lot of our other areas, we do not have to fund the full depreciation. And so when it's a loss, again, I'm going to go back to cash is king. It's a loss under your P&L, but it's not a loss in that we're not paying our bills, so to speak, and running and using up cash. We're just not building up lots of cash to put in our bank. And with the state of our finances across New Zealand, as in people struggling with the finances, that is a considered decision across many, so that our ratepayers aren't paying for us to put money in the bank.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Not, I would recommend that the draft 24-25 annual report be received. Do the seconder, please. Thank you, councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Recommendation 2. We have a move on second after that, please.
Move. Recommend.
Thank you. Moved councillor Wilson, seconded councillor Wong. All those in favour?
Just before you do that, I just wonder and would seek guidance from Leanne on this. Just noting that this is a draft we're being presented, and you used the words before about highlighting any differences between this draft and what will be a final draft from audit approval. I just wonder, could we record somewhere that they will be highlighted and noted to the new council? Because I think it's pretty important that we're looking at the document as it now is draft. And I'm just wondering if it's actually picked up there somewhere.
Good, if any may request, but we can add more to that, and I'm happy to do that. I have every intention that the report will take the new councils through
Yes.
any changes.
Yeah,
And
just
it's really important.
either note that as an action somewhere or ensure that that's clearly picked up, that we'll see that.
There's an action, and then it will come through to the next
Okay,
meeting of the.
thank
new
you for that. I
training.
think it's important.
Thank you. No other further discussion or queries. Then we've got councillor Wilson moved, seconded councillor Wong. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Third recommendation is that the worship, the mayor and the chief executive be authorised to sign the letter of representation and addressed to the council's auditor for the year ended 30th of June 2025. I'm happy to move. Seconder for that. Thank you, councillor Wilson. Any discussion? All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Yes, be a copy.
That's right. It's,
Something.
it seems that every time we can bring it to a meeting, it decides to pack a set. I had it on all day Sunday. It was as good as gold. I'll give it another go. Here we go, Richard.
They need that.
Thanks, Chief.
Hmm.
Greatly appreciate it.
Moving to page 16, item 9, reports of information. And finance snapshot, August 2025. Thank you, Warren.
Okay, once again, I'm pleased to introduce this to you. I will take it as read. I have nothing to call out in terms of our year-to-date result. You can see that we're tracking along very nicely to budget in just about all quarters. The only one thing I will point out is obviously with our spend on capital works relating to roading being down to budget, the associated NZTA subsidy is slightly less than budget, and hence that appears as a deficit in our revenue. That's a timing thing. I expect that will catch up by the end of the year as we round out that program and fill it up. That's the only thing to call out, and I'll invite questions.
Thank you, councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Warren. Just going back to the earlier item on the agenda, there was commentary regarding revaluations of roading, and I think the words were being less than what we had expected in the valuations. Are those current valuations as we've now received, are they confirmed and have they been transferred through to this to reflect the liquidity ratios of this report?
Yes, yes. So everything is up to date. Yes.
Absolutely up to date. Okay, thank you for that.
Any other discussion, queries? Councillor Loudon.
Brian, thank you for just what you said. It just made me think, in the last discussion, we roading budget more expensive, maybe $4 million for that year. Was our portion, was that the whole amount that council applied for? And then, council's responsibility for that amount is it's 37% or something. 34%.
Yep.
And so what I'm trying to get at is, let me get this clear, the amount that NZTA is, not paying us is 66% of that figure that we applied for. So what I'm saying is that council's loss is actually smaller than what you've
So
suggested, $4 million.
through the chair, the 4 million is the NZTA subsidy, not the rates. So we lost, I think, I want to say 12 million over 3 years. Thank you. So we lost that over 3 years from NZTA. Council, off the top of my head, has kept the rates similar, and we've got unsubsidised roading program of work. That is where we're not going to get our 66% of the
Yep.
NZTA funding.
Yep.
The annual plan that we're following for this year, 2025-26, is the annual plan, so it will reflect what we're actually getting this year. But when we come back to do the annual report in 12 months' time, we have to go back to the LTP for that. That is just an auditing requirement. We get no input to that. So it's really difficult. For this year, we will talk all the way through the year on the annual plan.
In the unfortunate situation where the our annual plans and long-term plans don't line up with the NZTA timeframes. Sorry,
Wrote to
Councillor.
them.
We make that
Complained.
point every single time.
Every LTP.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just that on that, and you're quite right, it doesn't line up with our LTP, which is early next year. Council applies in a 3-year block funding through to NZTA, saying this is the amount of work that we want to do. Here's what we're required to do. They then pick through it and say, no. And the reality of it is they funded us by just over $12 million less. So it's not though that we lost the money, they just didn't give it to us.
Yeah.
So using the word as a loss is, you know, we didn't lose any money. They just didn't approve the money to us in our budget rounds. So therefore we have less money to do the same amount of work. And that is where we find ourselves in difficulty, given the amount of work that we still require to do. We've got less money to try and do more. So it's not a loss as such. It's just not approved funding that didn't go into our NZTA budgets, and therefore isn't shown in our LTP plans in that respect, because it's not approved until it's approved by NZTA, correct?
Reduced funding
It's
compared
reduced
to
funding.
LTP,
Yeah,
correct.
that's
Councillor Moore.
Just to comment on our updates, you know, it all looks nice and good at the moment because start of the year, but I'm just going backwards to go forwards. It seems last year we were looking at our financial reports and everything was ticking along nicely, and then we get to the last month and then bang, everything gets chucked in there and we come up with our deficit. For example, things like the Martin Rail Hub, should they not have been accounted for in the January accounts? So it reflected in what we're seeing as councillors. And yeah, I'm just wondering whether if something popped up again this year that might be written off or on a project shut down, whether they go in.
Through the chair, I kind of understand that. I guess the complication is we're reporting a set of management accounts as opposed to a set of end of financial accounts that align to the accounting world.
Yeah.
And Audit New Zealand. We did, through our reporting on the capital program all through the year, report that and reflect that we would not be spending any more than that project had completed.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we did refer to it not happening, and it would be expensed. But we didn't carry it through because that's typically done at an end of a financial year. But we can look at that for future big projects. If we believe they're going to be sitting in the balance sheet and not carried forward, we could start simulating that throughout the year. So we take that on board.
Councillor Carter.
Change tune a bit. With these loans we've got, how many of these are attributed to our water that we may be getting back through the new identity?
So through the chair, approximately 60% of our debt is Three Waters. And we won't get that back on day one. It will depend on how the loans fall. We're quite conscious as we move into any new tranches of debt to align to our Three Waters and try and tie it into the July 27, July 28. But there'll be a few that go across, and off the top of my head, we have 5 years where the new CCO will pay for all of the costs of that debt, and by then it should be transferred across to them. So that's why
Your interests, yes.
well, yeah, and I'm hoping there'll be a portion of it admin cost that goes with that, but definitely interest. So you hear me say quite often, we won't get X amount of million on day one. I keep kind of reiterating that. It will be a staged process depending on how our tranches of debt fall.
I was just kind of said in my head that half of this will be gone
Correct.
when I'm working.
Correct.
So I can
You
say,
can't take that.
I did that.
But not half of our revenue. I just want to clear that too. So we lose, off the top of my head, about 20% of our income and 60% of our debt. And that reflects that we have used other activities to borrow against to carry out the work we have to do for Three Waters.
Just so the new council can't take credit for all this. That's good.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan?
Just clarification, and Councillor Wilson might be able to clarify for me. The NZTA application over a 3-year period, was that 24, 25? 26, 27. So the fact that we were notified that we weren't getting $12 million in that 3-year period, we would have already spent quite a large sum on the projects that we had on our books.
No.
No?
Through the
So you don't do
chair.
it till that's
No.
approved? Okay, thank you.
And we got notified, our final notification was about this. Yeah, it's part in June and part in September. So throughout New Zealand, councils are in the same boat we're in. We budgeted 12 million. In fact, my last council, I think we lost closer to 15 million. And that is showing in our long-term plan, and then we can only revise when we get to annual plans.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could make a comment, so
Sure.
the timing being out of step is councillors have to approve the LTP by the end of June, have to do it. But we only get confirmation from NZTA by September, October. So we're out of step with them continuously.
Thank you. Can I, no further discussion? Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive that August 25 financial snapshot, please? Thank you, councillor Carter, seconded councillor Loud, and all those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 9.2 is the debt collection update, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm going to present this today. That's just for the efficiencies of our team. At the moment, we're a little bit under the pump with audit. So I'll take the paper as read. This is purely our quarterly report. We present the bulk of the collection, as you know, is done through our collection agency of our Manawatu Whanganui LAS, our shared service. And yeah, it's very much standard report. Happy to take questions.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just looking at debt collection when sadly, we need to go through that process and it is managed by an external source. If the revenue collected is on a particular file is less than what we require, is that treated as some sort of provision for doubtful debt, or does that go against your total rating? If it's a rating debt, does that show in rates? Where does that get picked up?
Through the chair. So that is shown as a doubtful debt, and then it is written off, and we present a report annually to our council of rates we've written off, rates remission, etc.
So it's picked up in the rates remission side of things. Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Orr?
This subject has actually been quite a subject of news recently, and I've had some questions from our ratepayers. The balance of our of the NWLAS activities is at $18.2 million. That's what's owing
No, that's the active files I've got on their books, and that is the less active files.
Right,
Our Rangitikei District Council is the next page, 686,000 active files.
oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so what I left in there was to give you an idea of the entire. MWLS has 44 councils currently on their books.
Can you tell me how we compare to the other councils?
No, I cannot, no,
Okay.
sorry, I can't, I don't have that information.
Councillor Loudon.
Just on page 35, a little graph there, debt overview. At what point does a debt become historical? Is it a time lapse?
So our rating year is 1 July to 30 June.
Yeah.
And at the end of 30 June, if you have not cleared your rates, that lapses, it goes into a prior year.
That's historical.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a mover and seconder for receipt of that debt collection update, please? Thank you, councillor Loudon. Seconder councillor Carter. All those in favour? Against, carried. Item 9.3 is the LGFA general information.
Yeah. So through the chair, this is very much for information. The way we're set up under LGFA, they are essentially a CCO to us. And so they present their annual report to us, which I've included the link. And you'll be able to find it on their website as well. I won't pretend to say I've got all the details behind it, but I've given you kind of the highlights. There are no financial implications to us, the council.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, looking at this one, sorry, again, I'm just going to come back to local water done well. Once all of those progress over the next 3 years through to 27, we've got a lot of work to do, and you've already explained that there'll be parcels of debt either managed by us or transferred as they come due. What work's being done with regards to LGFA, or is the LGFA still going to be the principal funder of the entities? So it has no impact on LGFA where the funds are going itself?
So through the chair, already under legislation, LGFA can loan to CCOs, and they now know they'll be taking on a lot more debt. LGFA have one of the best credit ratings out there. They're preparing for this transition of debt, noting that most of us councils have our debt with LGFA. It is the cheapest source of funding for us.
So just to that, and you're right, it's very strong. We have a pro rata share of or risk associated with LGFA. So even though the funds are transferring from our debt parcel over to LGFA's debt parcel, our associated percentage associated with any particular risk of failure remains the same, doesn't it?
Correct, and we are a minute
I know.
amount of risk because we're not a shareholder. We are a guarantor, but we're not a shareholder.
Guarantor is the word I'm looking for.
But we're a guarantor, but minor risk. And for every tranche that we borrow, we have a liability sitting in our against it, so that if they did call, if that ever happened, and remembering the government owned a big chunk of this too, we would have.
Thank you. Sounds like you're all over that one. Good.
Can we have a mover and seconder for that recommendation, please?
Move.
Thank you, councillor Walton. Seconded, councillor Carter. All those in favour? It's carried. Moving to item 9.4, welcome to the table.
Good morning, everyone. I take the report as read. I've just got a couple of comments that I want to make. First of all, doing my review this morning, I noted that there was a couple of spelling and grammar errors that I did not pick up, so my apologies. I must have done that quite late. The second one being, I just wanted to highlight the communications and engagement survey that's been happening. We launched it towards the end of August and we're closing it at the end of this week. It's been a really fantastic exercise in my opinion. Those responses are now up to 158 as of today. I'm still sitting at around about that 89% favourability, but as you'll note in the kind of 4 points that I've put there just for a fast 5 summary of the responses that we've received, some really awesome feedback that we're going to be able to take through. There will be a full report that we will do once we close the survey on Friday, and it will come back. The third point that I wanted to make is just highlighting local elections happening at the moment. A large part of the comms focus has been on local elections in the campaign. I think you'll all be pleased to know that we're currently sitting at 11.18% votes returned as of today. This time last election in 2022, we were sitting at 1.75 votes returned. The best performance that we had in 2016 was we were sitting at about 7%. So just want to nod mainly actually to Ben, because a lot of the work that he's been doing has been working clearly, which is really, really great to hear. The other point that I just want to add on that as well is that we actually have spent no money on advertising dollars beyond our business as usual. So it's really down to some good grassroots communication and trying things out. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. So just looking at your feedback received, there was one here with regards to the Bulls transfer station. Looking at there's been some action taken. I note there's an update, signs have been installed to the transfer station to help with traffic flow. So there's 2 questions that I've got. A, has that been followed up by Raj, Arno, yourself, I'm assuming, to ensure that that action has taken place? Have we actually got eyes on that to say that that's happened?
Madam Chair, yeah, definitely. And that is on both Bulls and Martin. A step further, we will be painting more lines and arrows, etc., on that to make the traffic movements better.
Okay, excellent. So secondly to that, has that information been fed back to the person who raised it as a concern? Because it seemed to me to be a genuine concern. Have we taken the time to feed back to them and give them an update on the action that we've taken, and perhaps thank them for bringing it to our attention?
If they give their details, we do that. If they don't, a lot of them don't actually put their name or they're
Okay.
anonymous, then we can't. But if they do, we do.
You do that as normal process. Thank you. That's all I wanted to check on.
Thank you. I'm just interested around our feedback to the regulatory department. When we, go through our processes, do the public get the chance to feedback to them at all?
Not specifically. There is a piece of work that I'm looking at with the comms team, and we'll let them get over the elections first.
Right.
That we are looking at doing something exactly like what you say, but it will
Right.
probably be organisation wide, and we'll see which area we look at first. And that could include going to people after they've had an experience within planning or regulatory, any of the regulatory functions, and getting their feedback on that, same as with some of the other services we offer.
For sure.
So
I look forward to
it is
that.
on Sophia's plan, but
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm happy to move that the report on the feedback performance report August 2025 be received. Seconder, please. Councillor Morn, all those in favour? It's carried. And that's the close of our meeting.